This is going to be a joint oral history for the Bronx African American History Project and the Bronx Hip Hop Oral History Project. My name is Stephen Payne. I'm the director of the Bronx County Historical Society. I'm here with Pastor Crespo Jr., the librarian and archivist at the Bronx County Historical Society. And we're here with Guru, the founder of the Black Spades. This should be a really spectacular oral history. Looking forward to it. Guru, you want to just say something real quick about yourself before we get into the nitty gritty?
I have become, since my journey through the Bronx and the Black Spades, I am now retired New York City high school teacher. Taught history for 20 years. Taught history at Monroe College for a couple of years. I consider myself a didactic historian, and presently I'm married with my wonderful wife, who's also was an educator, a principal at John F. Kennedy High School. And I have sons who are also doing in the education field. My son is a guidance counselor, and my other son works at one of the charter schools, Hume Charter Schools in the Bronx. With that said, I have a wonderful daughter who works for the United States Armed Services. She was in the Navy for many years and came out, and now she helps veterans find homes and apartments and services, and that's something I'm very, very proud of, particularly for our soldiers. And I think that's a quick, basic thing, and I think that's good.
Awesome. Like Steven said, I'm Pastor, and that's an amazing coverage on your family. And what we like to do is we like to begin all of our oral histories by finding out your background and family history. Can you tell us where each of your parents are from, a little bit about each of them?
Yes. Well, let me start with my mom, because my dad passed away when I was 12 years old. Actually, he passed away on Halloween. That's why Halloween has always been very, very special to me. And my mom is probably my sole inspiration. What a wonderful, great woman she was. My mother worked, we lived in Harlem on 142nd Street and Lenox Avenue. And my mother came here by herself and forged her way alone. As she was doing that, she met my grandmother, who was of course, my future dad's mother. And as she was trying to find her way through Harlem, my grandmother helped her land a place to live. From there, my mom put herself through school. She went to a training program. She learned shorthand, for those who might remember what that is. And after learning shorthand, she went to school and she became an executive secretary for the Department of Social Services on 125th Street, where she worked for about 30 years, and she retired. During that time, my mother was always a social activist. She supported the civil rights movement of Dr. King. She's from the South, on Georgia, and while there, she was active. My aunt, her sister, was one of the first Black Muslims with Elijah Muhammad. She met him in Chicago, and she brought her Muslim stuff with her to Georgia, and she would go to the imam and this is back in 1960s. That was something, just to walk around in garb at that time in the South. And she would take me sometimes to the mosque, and because I was basically a Christian, going to the mosque was just something new to me. And when I got back to New York, because I was in Georgia, when I got back to New York, my mom had always been involved in social activities. She was one of the first persons when we moved to the Bronx to be a part of what we call the Tenant Association. And the Tenant Association, during that time, the mothers would come and sit in the hallway. All right, so anyone who walked through the door would be challenged by the parents sitting there, okay? And that was a way of keeping your building safe. And my mother always did that. She made me come down and sit with her. She went to all the meetings and dragged me along with her. And from there, I started getting my sense of organization. And we moved to the Bronx. I don't know if I skipped that. We moved to the Bronx after my dad died. So about 12, 13 years, we moved to Bronxdale Project.
Around what year was that?
That was 60, maybe 65.
Okay, yeah.
65. Yeah, we moved to Bronx, and there my mama, of course, was sitting in the Tenant Association and attending all these meetings and functions. And I just thought that was a wonderful thing to do. And she constantly told me that it was important. It was so important to be an integral part of your community, not just live there. So my mother, you would make us do things in the community, join every organ. I was in the Sea Cadets, the Marine Cadets, I was in the Boy Scouts, I was in the Explorers. All right, how I mixed that in with the Black Spades is another thing, but that's what my mom made me do. And from that, I began to create organizations. So in my neighborhood, I was one of the leaders to start clubs. The first club I started was a singing club because I sang in the church and I could sing. I can't sing like I used to, but I still can sing a bit. So I started a singing group. In the singing group, we started other groups. And before you know we're doing anything to start a group just to hang together as kids. Mostly in our community, cleaning things, doing things in the community. And this is Bronxdale. This is Bronxdale 1969-70. And then things began to change.
How old were you in 69, 70?
I believe I'm 16 or 15 years old. Because I remember that when I started the Black Spades, I was 15 years old. And I was in 7th grade in junior high school 123. As I mentioned, my dad had passed, but my mom had remarried to my present dad, my stepdad, and he was a businessman, started his own business. Didn't have much time for me. Therefore, I took my time and began to develop and use it for whatever I could. But things began to change in 1965, 66. Things changed. The first thing that happened, we had a large influx of Puerto Ricans who came into the Bronx, and particularly Northeast Bronx where we were. Because we weren't, I want to be clear, we were not in the South Bronx. We were in the Northeast Bronx, but our friends and family and every connection was in the South Bronx. James and Karen was the high school, junior high school that we all attended in Bronxdale Project, at least from my side, 1670 on. And while there, in 7th grade, we noticed this large influx of Hispanics coming into the community. We were in our school. And we didn't know how to deal with this, particularly someone speaking a little language not English. So we took up the typical thing that many Americans do. Who are these people coming in our community talking about this thing? Then they began to gather in certain parts of the school that they would take and make it theirs. And, we were like, wow, how they do that. And the wonderful thing about that community when they came was that they supported each other very strongly. The Puerto Rican community, those folks who moved at that point were very supportive of each other, took care of each other. And we learned a few things from them as well. The cohesion that they had and how they looked out for each other. Absolutely. But there was another part of that we didn't, I think we might have been jealous of, and that they communed together with everything. So the lunchroom became segregated. We had the Puerto Ricans over there, and the blacks over here, and the whites over there. That was the first thing we all noticed. And then some groups took over our section that was ours forever. That's how the first beef began. The first beef began in the lunchroom. And from the lunchroom, we began to organize ourselves from the lunchroom beef, I should say. And then one horrible winter day, I remember this like it was yesterday, my buddy Douglas Fauntleroy was slashed from the top of his face all the way down. I never forget seeing the first time as a young kid, seeing such a wound, and got him to the hospital. And then we decided, okay, we're going to organize, we're going to start as a club to protect ourselves from the Puerto Ricans. Now, let me be very clear. There was no need to protect us. This was all an illusion that we created based on wanting to, this gang stuff that was at that time being heavily promoted.
Sure.
I mean, we were just coming out of the 50s, 60s gang area. In particular, I lived in Harlem. They had a bunch of gangs in Harlem that I was familiar with. So this is what we did to protect ourselves. I will go even one further. I won't mention the teacher's name, but there was a teacher who actually, after we told him what happened, advocated for us to start our own group. All right? Didn't say to start a gang, but said you got to protect yourself. And he was a Jewish teacher who I loved this man. And when he told me that, that's all we needed. That's all I needed to get this thing going. So after Douglas Fauntleroy incident occurred, and hopefully God willing he's still with us, we went back into the community, me and my friend Blackie, Michael Live, no longer with us, and there was another gentleman, I can't recall who he was at that time, but we walked up and down our block and we said, we can't deal this no more, we're gonna protect ourselves. And of course we weren't talking like that, we're young kids, F that, fuck that, we're gonna do this. And we spawned the gang. So we went through a couple of names and we decided to use the Black Spades. And here's why. Because we knew the spade was a symbol, a derogatory symbol for black people at that time. And we said, we're gonna make this something to be proud of. So we're gonna take this name and we're gonna call this Black Spades. Originally we had the spade upside down because we were trying not to show, right? But we threw that out the window. And we called ourselves the Black Spades and we began to organize. During that time, I met a guy by the name of David Rockington, who just moved into my community. And he was radicalized through the Muslim religion. He was a Muslim. And he was following, he was actually in the FOI, Freedom of Islam. He was attending all the meetings. He was actually in the school, going to the school, I believe it was in Harlem. They said in Mosque number 7, they had a school there. He was attending. Everything he was learning, I was open to learn. I wanted to hear more. I wanted to be radical. I wanted to stop some of the injustices that I thought was happening, and I'll speak to that in a minute. But anyway, he was with me. He really opened me up. His mother, Mrs. Rockington, was also very knowledgeable about Black history. And that also enticed me, and we formed a friendship that we have until today. Now, David Rockington and myself began to reach out to different people in our community, different cousins and different friends we had across the Bronx. Because our idea was not to just have this Black Spade organization here, but we wanted to spread out. But let's go back to 123. So now we got us a little gang. By the way, we're not as big as the Spanish gang or the Puerto Rican gang. Their name was called the Social Lords.
The Social Lords. Everything was something Lords.
Because if you remember back in the 50s, many of the gangs had Lords as their last name. So this Latin gang, because I'm sure it was more than just Puerto Ricans, a part of it, Puerto Ricans were the main set, they called themselves the Social Lords. So now you got the Social Lords and the Black Spades in 123. There's a small contingent of white folks, but they're moving out now. They're moving up and they're moving out. Because another reason why the Spades was created was because we were surrounded by white folks on every area. So you had Castle Hill, you had Patelli Avenue, you had up Rosedale, even Monroe Project still had a large white population, or should I say leaving, they were leaving. But we were hemmed in. So as a kid, when I left Watson Avenue, sometimes I couldn't walk up to Castle Hill because the white guys see it, then they beat the shit out of us and we had to run back.
Kids and adults?
Kids, of course. The adults were worse than the kids. We really had control of, but the adults who had cars, and we didn't have cars, and we didn't have a license, would chase us and beat us, and so that was happening too. At the same time, we were building Stevenson High School. They were building Stevenson High School, and they were building Bruckner Boulevard. And those areas were kind of our areas to go and play, because beyond that, you ran into the white contingent, and your ass was grass. So I don't want to just say the progenitors or the cause was just the Puerto Rican gang, but we had a lot of stuff going on also around us. And I would say that our main incursions were not with the Social Laws, but our main incursions began with the white gangs, the White Angels, the Golden Guineas, the White Americans, I believe. There was a couple of them missing. And they were our biggest protagonists. That was our issue. We eventually solved our problems with the Puerto Rican gang in 123 because David Brockington had a fight with their leader. And David Brockington won. Now, my memory doesn't serve me how that happened, but I do recall that we had probably one rumble in schoolyard with sticks and knives with the social lords. And whatever outcome I don't remember, I do remember that no one got hurt. So it's probably one of the only times I remember that we had, but no one got hurt, but a couple of people just got it ran. At that point, we were still novices of being gangs and what we should do, carry. That, of course, changed after a while. I'm sorry. All right, so let me see where we're at now. So we're at 123. Gangs started. We have gangs now. The culture is changing in the school. Instead of us going to school now, we're going to school to be cool. We're going to school to be a gang. We're going to school to meet in the lunchroom, find some trouble. And that's how our era in 123 ended. The next part of this story picks up as we all graduated and some of us went to Stevenson. Most of my crew went to Stevenson, other place, and Stevenson was a new school. Getting to Stevenson meant leaving your community and going into at that point, white community. And that's where we began to really formulate into what we would call a gang. And that's when we really formulated into becoming a dangerous gang. Mm-hmm. All right. At this point, based on the things that were going on around us, we began to arm ourselves very well. The Vietnam War was going on, and we had ways of securing weapons and different things based on many of the soldiers that were coming back. We had a couple of those guys come back and become a part of us and help us train and organize. And that's a whole nother part of it. I'm trying to take this slow, so we'll go. But when we get to Stevenson now, we began to expand. We get chapters in Bronx River. We get chapters in Monroe. We get chapters in Castle Hill. We get chapters in Philadelphia. We get chapters in the South. So at this point, we are growing immensely. And that's why one of the reputations we have is the Black Spades as the largest, because our intent was to spread and expand. And we probably have more chapters than any of the other gangs, but we didn't have control of all those chapters. It's like anything else in war when you spread yourself thin. But we didn't realize that at that time. Now we're about 16, 17. We didn't realize, 16 I should say, we didn't realize that, spreading ourselves so thin. But now we're starting to engage in many rumbles. And that's another part of it that gets very, very cloudy, because these times we were, listen, man, we were drunk and drinking, and we were getting high and doing whatever else kids did back then. And, we did it even better. But one of the things we continue to do, what was most important, and I want to make this, was take care of our community. So now 123 is over, and we're kind of out of 8th grade. We're going into 9th grade. We're at Stevenson. Heroin is now has totally just flooded our community. The old heads, as we would call them, are becoming dope fiends. The dope fiends are on the corner. They're doing the nodding thing. And we weren't going to let that happen. I should say that when we started the space, it's very important also to know that you could not use drugs, you could not drink, you could not smoke. So when I'm talking about drinking and smoking, that happened later on. But in the original crew of us, that was not allowed.
Were the original members part of a certain building or certain buildings at Bronxdale originally?
Well, we came from 3 or 4 different buildings. I came from 1670, David Brockington from 1690, Blackie from 1040, Fat Mike and Desi from 16, I forget their numbers now, but yes, all of the members were from the first section. That's why we called ourselves the First Division. And we all came out of those buildings that are still standing today. So now we're we're seeing dope flood our neighborhoods. We become vigilantes, and we start doing this necessary to keep the neighborhood safe. And we took some very drastic measures. But eventually, after about 6 months to a year, all the dope addicts knew they could not hang in the first section. Many of them moved to the third section because our Bronxdale projects is 3 sections: first, second, and the third. So they moved to the third section. We pretty much controlled the first section.
Wow.
So there was no drugs, no more. We probably had 1 or 2 of our mothers was robbed, but after that, that didn't happen no more.
Sure.
And I will say we took some really drastic measures to do that.
Sure.
And when we finally got that part of our neighborhood, we started earning a reputation around don't come in Bronxdale with drugs, or don't come in Bronxdale because you're gonna have a problem. And that lasted for about a year. So Stevenson came, and there was a big issue between the blacks and whites in Stevenson. The first problem is we couldn't get to school because the 27 bus went through the neighborhood where the white folks were and who wanted to get us, for lack of a better way to describe this. And what happened, one incident, how the Spades got involved is that some young lady from my section, the first section, got severely injured from the white guys throwing bricks into the buses. And not only did they throw bricks into the buses, but they came onto the bus, got onto the bus, gained access to the bus, and beat up they were kids now, and beat them up all right. Some kids went to the hospital, nobody died, don't get me wrong, it wasn't, but at that point, we said, that's it. So I remember that week we went back, and we started making colors. We started drawing colors and identifying ourselves, who we were. And then we started, what I directed my guys to do was every morning, 3 of my guys with their colors would jump on the 27 bus and go back and forth with the bus. They did that. We had no incidents for the first week and a half.
Wow.
Then, after that, one of my guys named Sinbad, who was one of the first division, he was going to school. He got caught, and he did not want to be a spade, by the way. Cindy, you're right, I'm right about this. He didn't want to be a spade, but after he got beat down on that 27 bus, he decided to become a part of us. And then we amped up a bit. Then we started going to Stevenson and having small rumbles with white guys. I'd go send some dudes over there, I'd go there, we'd go there, and we'd have these fights with sticks and bats, and at that time, knives and guns weren't coming out yet, but they would have sticks and bats, and we fought each other, and one culminated in one of the guys getting killed in EJ Corvettes. That's another story. Of course, the police began to pressure both groups, but mostly us. And Stevenson became a battleground. I can't even remember the times I remember those old stickball bats. One of the guys hit me with a stickball bat across my head, almost got knocked down. A guy dragged me out of there. But it was a battleground. I never finished high school in Stevenson.
It was some of the same white gangs as before, or new ones too?
Yes, they were, and they were tough white guys. Some of them we knew, because Stevenson still had some white guys in there, and the white community was still there, but they were moving. When Stevenson was built, they started to move north, going to Thrall's Neck and different areas. But it became a battleground, and again, the police were there almost every day. And eventually, the school became so dark, so many black Hispanics, that there was no sense for the white guys, because they figured, well, listen, they're here now, so they began to leave. And Stevenson took that particular reputation with Stevenson carried on until we left. And then we moved into another phase of the Spades, because we pretty much stopped going to school.
Absolutely.
We weren't going to school. I know I wasn't. I'd attend a class, come in, the guy wouldn't know me, and again, I was pretty much a starter of the Spades. So I was starting a lot and creating a lot of things that were going on.
Now, at this phase of the Spades' existence, did the First Division have a clubhouse or any kind of place that you?
When we were graduating from 123, Dino, one of our newly minted guys, mother had a house on Watson Avenue, and we began to stay in her house as a clubhouse. And it was a garage, and so we went in there and cleaned out the garage, put some music in there, and we would go to Dino's house, and that would be our little clubhouse. And that lasted till about somewhat middle of Stevenson. I can't remember all these dates, guys. So.
Sure.
But that was our clubhouse. And eventually mom threw us out of there because we got too stupid and dangerous. All right. I mean, I remember one time we had a gang fight right on Watson with the Savage Nomads. And she lived right down the block, and she came up screaming, and, you know, she saw us out there with colors, and she went crying. We had to get her out the way, and so our clubhouse went to kaput. That was it for the clubhouse. So we were homeless for a little bit. Fratelli Avenue, which was right across Watson, was all Italian. All right, everybody there was. Why? We know because every year they had the best fireworks. So they had every year, 4th of July, they would let us come down there and watch their fireworks. But other than that, you don't want to go down to Philadelphia Avenue, which is right across the street. And you're talking about Monroe projects, which still had a large white population. And then all the private houses around us were also populated by mostly white folks. But then Hispanic families began to because a lot of Hispanic families were moving into the private houses as opposed to the projects.
Okay.
That was significant. I remember a lot of my buddies. But around us was predominantly a white community. I remember, getting chased how many times. I can't remember how many times I got chased just going up to Castle Hill to want to go to the store or something, So our community we were really hemmed in. But as the demographics began to change, Monroe became more brown. Bronx River was browning already. My community was turning brown because predominantly white community when I first moved in there. And what other price? So yes, the whole community was pretty much a white community, and well kept too. I didn't move. I never forget moving there from Harlem, and I was like, whoa, I never seen trees before. I was like, yo, this is up. So it was a pretty well kept community and a pretty close knit community. Because one of my best friends became a guy named Tom. God bless him, an Irish guy. He was like my best friend. He was with me when I started the Spades, matter of fact. I didn't put his name in there.
Wow.
He married, his sister married my best friend, Michael Ly's oldest brother. So that was an interracial marriage right there. They lived in the project for a little bit.
Wow.
His brother is now is married to, I believe, Tom. His brother hit me up the other day. He's in California. He works with a medical group. And Tom's brother, and they were white folks that lived in the community that pretty much accepted black folks, and well, listen, they live right there. What are they gonna do?
That's right. And before we get more, even further into the Spades, just to sit with Bronxdale itself a little bit, you mentioned your mom being very active in the Tenants Association. Why don't you talk a little bit more about how Bronxdale was during those years as a community?
Bronxdale was a really nice community. I mean, that's the way I remember it. I say that because, first of all, we had activities, and we had seasonal activities. So in the summertime was Ringalerio. And the winter time was go get your sled off the thing. And near winter is football. And there was softball. So we as kids, every season had a different activity that we all engaged in. Then because our parents, when I remember Bronxdale at this time we were probably middle class, so what you call lower middle class.
Yeah.
My mom worked for the Department of Social Service. My friend's mother worked for the city. All my friends, they all had pretty decent jobs because I think you had to have a certain type of income to get in there.
That's right.
So that's why I always say we weren't a poor neighborhood. Everything was working. Grass was beautiful. Chain link fences. Mr. Softy every day in the summer. singing groups on the corner. And now you go by a certain building, you see the guys out there singing.
The doo-wop, right?
The doo-wop was big time because I could sing, so I always try to get in with the big guys. And they go, get out of here, but he can sing. I'll let him back. He can sing. Parties. We had the parties, and this is all pre-Black Spades.
Yeah.
Really nice community. The schools were decent. 123. I went to PS 47, which is right off Westchester Avenue now, and that was a nice school. Right next to it was a Catholic school, so they had all the girls with the short skirts. And yeah, man, it was really a decent community. There was until the dope came in. When the heroin flooded, it was like, we were, one moment we're looking at the community, next moment we saw our big brothers. Not my brother. My brother didn't. It wasn't heroin that was his problem. He had a drug problem too, but it wasn't heroin. And all these guys are nodding on the corner, man. And then they started robbing our mothers, and that was it. Yep. And then we did some things that I'm not talking about, but we had to. It took us about 6 months, but we got them out the first section. Not out the entire project, but where we were, we moved them out. I know that because in the third section just blew up. There were robberies and people getting killed over there, and that's before Pathmark got there.
Yeah.
Okay, they were doing, forget it, and it was got bad. So we did clean up the community for a bit.
Taking you back to PS 47 and Junior High School 123, you mentioned Ringalivio. Were
Yeah.
there any other kid games and activities in Bronxdale that
Ringalivio
you
was
recall?
in ball, dodgeball. You remember dodgeball?
Yes.
Ringalivio, dodgeball, and I could do something that other guys can do. I could jump rope.
Okay.
Because in Harlem, double dutch was a big thing. And though the girls did it, the guys would do it too. And sometimes after the girls got through in Harlem, so I learned how to double dutch through a girl named Charmaine, who was in my building in Harlem. So when I got up to New York, it wasn't very popular, but I should say I could double dutch. I get into double dutch. But PS 47 was another predominantly white school, predominantly white, and that changed too. By the time 5th, 6th grade, we had more blacks moving in, but it was also a school that was great.
Awesome.
I don't remember. I remember.
First degree black belt.
Well, we there. I did have a problem though in 5th grade because I was always forming clubs and groups, and one group I formed, we had a fight with another group in the lunchroom, and this is where I got this from. This cut. Guy had a razor, he cut me, and so again, even when I was in 4th and 5th grade, I was organizing groups. Now that particular group wasn't one to fight. I forgot where we were organizing from, but I organized a group, and then we had a big fight in the lunchroom with another group, and I got cut, I had to come home, blah, blah, blah. So.
Now, I know you mentioned some of your own radicalization came from David initially.
Initially, yeah.
Were there other kinds of groups other than, Muslims in the neighborhood that you remember from that time?
At that point, when Dave moved in, not yet.
Okay.
But during the time as Stevenson is opening and we're starting to move in there are other radical groups that are visiting us as Spade. The Republic of New Africa, the Black Liberation Army, a very weak sect of Panthers, Black Panthers, because New York didn't have a strong Panther party like they did in LA and other places. And of course the Black Muslims who were recruiting us through David.
Sure.
But yes, they began to move and reach out for us. But none of them were a mainstay in the community over there.
Yeah, because there wasn't a mosque or anything.
No,
there at the time.
Not at all. The only mosque in town was Mosque Number 7, which Malcolm was the leader of, and that's on 116th Street. Funny about that is that I was singing in church. I had to go to church every day, and my church, First Corinthians, was right down the block from Mosque Number 7. First Corinthians, right on 116th 7th Avenue. The mosque is right down the block. So it was always, I would never forget the blackout. When the blackout happened, my brother and I were walking up from the mosque and we got robbed, right? Right by the mosque. You couldn't believe that because if it was daylight, them brothers out there in the mosque, they didn't take that.
They didn't play.
And that's where we actually, David and I thought about how we should work with the dope fiends, because we were getting, I used to go to FOI, I think I went to a couple of their martial arts classes. because I was also a martial artist at that time. 4th grade, I began into martial arts. And David was also into it, and that helped radicalize us too, learning martial arts and knowing we could take care of ourselves. I was a tall, skinny guy. He was kind of thinny guy, so but that was important. But yeah, this is good. The questions work better than
how'd you get exposed to martial arts in 4th grade?
A guy named Ron Scott, who we all as Snoopy, and you'll hear a lot about him if you on YouTube. Ron Scott lived in the 2nd section, I lived in the 1st, and he saw that I was interested in martial arts because I used to get my gi and I work out right on the streets, right on the highway. And he saw me and he took interest in me. He was 2-3 years older than me, and he started taking me to his karate schools. And I took my first lesson at YMCA on Westchester Square. You know that big church on Westchester with the grave? They have graves in there from 18th, 17th century.
That's right.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That used to be a community type place, and I took my first martial arts class there in 5th grade.
Wow.
Judo. And the guy was a Latin guy, Hispanic guy. His name, I forget it, but he was, what amazed me about him, he was like 300 pounds, but he could move. I had never seen a man move like that big. So he really impressed me. So he was my first instructor. Then Ron Scott came along and we started moving into karate because that was judo, my judo experience. And from there, I began to train seriously, and I stayed training up until even when I was doing the Black Spades, I was still, Ron Scott would make sure we have class every day. So I was getting some discipline, how to be, something that my other friends weren't getting. They weren't interested in martial arts. Some of them were interested in boxing.
Absolutely.
So Castle Hill AC, you ever heard of that?
Yep.
Castle Hill AC, I used to box there too. After my karate stop, I went to Castle Hill AC, me and Blackie and all of us started boxing there with Joe, the guy who owned it, lived in my building, Joe Freya. Joe Freya and his son went on to become, you can look it up, his son was the welterweight, Golden Glove welterweight champion in the 70s. And 2 of his sons became champions, Golden Glove champions. And he had like 8 kids, man. Wow. He had the biggest family in the neighborhood, man. And all of his sons became great boxers. And I began to follow him. He would drag me because he lived on the 1st floor. I lived on the 6th. He'd see me, come on, put that karate shit away. Come on with me. We're gonna get you to boxing. And I started boxing a little bit. So I don't mean to confuse all the stuff, but it's just the memories are starting to come back at me.
That's right. That's good. And I mean, all of this was happening at the same time.
All at the same time. I'm in the spade. I'm doing the spade thing. I'm still doing martial arts while I'm with the spades because Snoopy is now making sure that I'm doing the right thing. I'm even attending Boy Scout trips on the weekend.
Wow.
Going to Camp Pouch. I humped what is that over there, George Washington Bridge? I forget the camp. I used to know all the camps. They're probably not even there anymore. But I humped all the major Boy Scout camps along with Snoopy, who was training himself to go into the armed forces.
I see.
And at one point, he got up and he left. He was one of the first Marines to enter the Vietnam War at 16. He was one of those 16-year-olds. He signed himself. He lied and got himself into them. So he was in the Marines. And when he left, that devastated me too because he kind of was my leader. So now the Black Spades really engulfed me.
Absolutely.
And I really took over. Plus, I was training, so now I'm starting to teach these guys, those who wanted to learn martial arts. And I'm doing a little boxing. And my buddies are doing martial arts. Now, those buddies are Blackie, David Brockington, and the crew who becomes the Spades who we're going to get to. That becomes a whole different thing.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned doo-wop already. Why don't you talk about some of the other music that you heard in the neighborhood?
Well, the doo-wop is happening now while we're in 123. I'm in junior high school. Now we're moving to high school, and here's the doo-wop groups kind of fading out, and we start into, well, I don't know if it was disco, whatever, but we began to create this disco music. And I don't want to say me, because by this time, I'm kind of going ahead. I'm sort of getting older, moving. We're trying to move back into an organizational type spade thing. But then a guy named Mario comes along. 75. I was 6, I think maybe 77. Mario comes to visit one of the first division original Spades. His name is Desi. And he's Desi's cousin. And Mario comes, and Mario is wild. And he's perfect for us because we're wild too, but he's even wilder.
And this is 67?
Yes, I think it's 67. I have to go back and look at my years to get those right, guys. So maybe on the
Somewhere
next
in the
session.
late 60s. Huh?
Yeah. And Mario comes, and now he and I have actually stabbed me. I still got stabbed one on my back from Mario because he was really wild. I had to calm him down, and he defied me one day in front of the crew, and I had to grab him when he pulled a knife from me, stabbed me. I still whipped his ass and took his knife from him, and he went to Carolina for a while, but he came back. By this time, he's kind of down, but he was some figure. Mario, to me, in my estimation, was the person who started hip-hop in the Bronx. And particularly, there was no one else doing what he was doing. I mean, what he was doing, just no one else was doing. So I know I've heard the stories, what they say. I am telling you, Mario does not get enough recognition for being one of the original hip-hop artists and to start this hip-hop thing. That's why I can't believe where it is now. I mean, but he was definitely one of the persons who should be down as, if not the progenitor, the originators of part of that crew, Mario.
Do you recall the types of music and the albums that he played and where he played them at? If you recall?
He played them in Park. He played them in that school, 123. He played them in 125. He played them in all the big parks, one on Rosedale, the big park in Bronx River. He played in all these disco clubs that were on
Westchester Avenue.
Yeah, Westchester Avenue. The Fever. I believe he did Fever. I believe he was there. I could be wrong. I have to check with my man Tex D. I don't know if you guys have heard of Tex yet. All right, so Tex he's my partner, and I always try to say I raised those kids, and him and Bambaataa. But he started playing in all these venues, and then he started getting these crowds following him. And then because he didn't have a lot of money, he was getting money any way he can to build his speakers, get speakers. But he had other people around him that would give their speakers to him because he would go there and he would, he just had a really charismatic way with people. People loved him, what he put out. Plus, he was a handsome guy, so the girls loved him. And then he could dance. He had this dance he did that the women loved. But he was really something. Me and him didn't get along, but that didn't make no difference of talent. The guy was talented.
Sure.
He was courageous, just brave beyond, he should have been a zillionaire somewhere, but unfortunately, drugs took him to, as they did most of us.
Do you recall any of the early dances that surrounded any of the Mario events?
Yeah, I used to about 5 years ago. I could do it for you because I try to stay in shape, but I can't. But it was one. We had the dance where they were spinning.
Right.
So we'd jump down on the floor, we'd spin, and then we'd pop back up. After about 3 or 4 years, that thing went. People started spinning on their heads and spinning on their backs, and it became such an art.
Okay. And it'd be cool for you to talk about those dances and when you're spinning, were they spinning like a top on their feet, on their back?
On their backs, on their heads, not on their feet. The old timers, the James Brown guys. I'm the James Brown guy.
Got it.
I was spinning on my feet.
Yeah.
I could do all that type of stuff. But these guys took it to a new level. And their dances became on the floor. To the point where they would go to the supermarket and get cardboards and put them in the grass. And then they would practice their spinning moves on the grass and all their dance figurations. So, again, I'm moving out of that realm now. And the young guys, the young Spades, Bambaataa, Tex D, Soski, all those guys started coming and doing that stuff. Bambaataa and Tex D were my 2 young Spades presidents and vice presidents. Bambaataa's uncle or his dad was, like me, radicalized. And I believe is much more deeper than I was. because I believe that's where Bambaataa got his name from. As you know, Bambaataa is an African name from the great African emperor. My history loses me right now. And Bambaataa took his name. So he was being racial, I won't say, but radicalized through his uncle, who taught him black history. And so he had a heads up on many of us as it relates to black history and those types of things. But Bambaataa was, as far as, there's rumors and stuff about Bambaataa as far as I know, and I still know because he reached out for me some time ago. He cut his bones in hip hop and took it, ran with it. What Mario didn't finish, Bambaataa did. They were like this at one point.
Absolutely. Now, did the Black Spades? Did you all do like? I know some other groups in the Bronx were doing like kind of what they call outlaw rocking or that kind of stuff.
The Black Spades. Yes, Well, the outlaw term. Now it's funny you bring that up because I before you guys came out, I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna. Well, my wife said make notes, and I did that and I did some other things, but you know what? It's here. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Oh, outlaw rocking.
Outlaw rocking, yes. Outlaw that term is what divided us as Black Spades. Because for a time there, the Hells Angels was our heroes. We bought the boots. We used to walk around with the stomper boots that we call the stomper boots.
Right.
We tried to mimic them with their dress and our colors. We tried to make them as beautiful as the Hells Angels. We would ride down there and look at their clubhouse in the village on 4th Street, I believe it was. So they were kind of our heroes. We would run around talking about we're going to be dirty and funky, we're going to clean, we're going to wallow. We wore dungarees for days and didn't take them off, and we would be proud of how we smelled. We were really out there.
Yeah.
But then another transition began to happen. And that transition, we began to get older. And things became a little more serious as related to doing the activities that we involved in. So one part of us decided we're going to be outlaw. And they openly would go on and talk, we're outlaws. My side of the Spades, which was the hierarchy, we said we're not going to let that happen. So for about a year and a half, there was this internal war between us.
All within the first division?
Within the first division. These guys are a group of guys that wanted to go out there and do that. It was my crew, along with Snoopy now, who's now out of the Marines. He's home now. And he's helping us organize and become a unit that could be for black liberation. Black, lack of a better way, that's what we wanted to do. So we went and engaged in a bunch of activities to make that happen. Getting into the Lincoln Hospital thing.
Absolutely.
That was a part of it. Marching with anything we could find that would, in the Bronx, further black culture. We went into Pathmark. Pathmark had just opened up. They didn't have any black or Latino people working there. So we went in there and we took it over. We can go in there. That part of this needs to have one its own segment, because that's what we began to do. The outlaw part decided to do something totally different. They became newsworthy. And all of the news that followed us followed them. Unfortunately, I was the vice president at that point because Monk became the president. I gave up being president. Monk became the president. I was the vice president. But in effect, I was the president of one sect and Monk was the president of another sect. And they went on to do things that we did not approve of. We constantly were fighting and beating their ass. And, we would have meetings at Soundview Center. That was our meeting place. And at that center, we'd call you in. All the spade heads all the heads of the groups had to come. So you'd have maybe 150 presidents and vice presidents of warlords. That's the only people who come. You couldn't bring your regular guys. And we'd get my guys in there, And we cut the lights on. We started whipping their ass because that's the only time we can get them in there. Why? Because they had to come pay their dues. And if you didn't come pay your dues, then you couldn't function.
Yeah.
I mean, we literally had a bank and then it came to a point where we couldn't control them anymore. And we were getting our ass kicked by the cops. Even though we weren't partaking in that activity.
Sure.
You know, and cops at that time were COINTELPRO, we know who, all kind of people were investigating us. But that's where the split happened. And I would say my group, we went on to do things in the community that we'll talk about later that were wonderful. Their group went on and done things. Some of them got killed. Many of them did jail time. I never did jail time.
Yeah.
Not because I didn't want to, was not willing to go to jail for the right cause, but not for that. Now, when I was 15, 16 years old, didn't know any better, I might have done that. But Mom didn't raise no fool. Mom raised an activist. I was not a gang member. I was called a gang member through, I was on David Susskind. I don't know if you guys saw the footage of that. And I spoke on David Susskind, and I tried to impress upon him that we were no gang, but he was doing his thing. Good guy, by the way, David Susskind. Found out he was a decent man. It's not typical of what I see today, because there were times where he could have done certain things and didn't. I appreciated that. We appreciated it because when we left the studio, we talked about it. Plus, he fed us.
Okay.
That was he had to feed us.
Yes.
All right? That's why Pathmark got in trouble. They didn't want to feed us.
Uh-huh.
All right. If they would have, we'd been a little nicer how we took it over. But he fed us. He was good. But anyway, that's where the schism happened.
Do you remember the year of that schism?
I'm sorry?
The rough year of that schism, when it occurred?
Yeah, do I remember what year it was? Mm-hmm. Well, I do know that David Brockington had left us by then, so it had to be 70, it had to be maybe 72, 73, okay. 72, 73.
Yeah.
Because David Brockington was no longer the president, because he was the original president. I was the president and I started, but I didn't want to be because I knew my mother would kick my ass. So I said, David, you be the president, I'll be the vice president. So when the gang started, when we started up, back in the story I was telling from 123, I was the vice president, he was the president. As we grew, we had a little schism with him. He left and went on his way. I became the president, and then I found Monk.
Uh-huh.
I told Monk, I need you to be the president, gang, I'll be the backup, but Monk did that. But then Monk and his crew, who were my crew, became his crew, they began to go in a different direction.
And were they were also from the first section?
Yes.
All of them from the first
Everybody's
section.
from the first section.
Uh-huh.
All the first section guys, see if I get the name. Guru, that was me. Blackie, that was my buddy who died. Spanky, who was Monk's brother. Monk, Desi, Sinbad. I'm missing a few others. Freight Train, who's no longer here. I did say Desi. My brother, who never was part of what he thought he was. He was a lover. And right now, those are the names, and I know, forgive me if anyone I missed, but those were the 6 to 8. There's just 6 to 8 of us.
Yeah.
And again, all of us came from really decent families.
Sure.
I can't sit here and give the old, I came from a poor mom. That wasn't the case. Not for me. And not for none of my friends. And most of them, the guys who I'm mentioning. Blackie, Fat Mike, all of these guys. We all, pretty much decent families. We just thought we wanted to protect the community.
Absolutely.
Come with the question, guys.
Yeah, sure. So while the split was going on and after the split, did you all just hold on to the Black Spades name?
Yes. So what we did, we were still Black Spades, but now we're moving into the Pathmark era.
Uh-huh.
So we take Pathmark, had CAD, we took that out, we took everything. We made Pathmark. They had to succumb to me and a guy named Reese Wright. Reese Wright was about 30 years old at the time, and he was into black liberation.
Uh-huh.
And he was a conductor for Amtrak. He was the main guy who took the train from Philadelphia to New York every day. That was his route. And then he would come to Pathmark and he worked as a security person.
Uh-huh.
And he would dress very nice. He would carry this big African cane. And he met me because he knew what I was doing with the Spades, and he knew I was a leader. And what he would do is he say, man, you guys got to stop that shit. You got to start organizing the right way. You see the way these guys doing that Black Spades training, that's why you're going. Because we would get locked up every week. Black Spades, the man's trying. So he got us politicized. And the Lindsay administration, I think, was there.
Uh-huh.
And there was a guy named, I think he's definitely gone now. He was in charge. He was the commissioner of community affairs. Ted Gross. You ever heard of him?
I have heard of Ted Gross. Yeah.
Ted Gross. Ted Gross allowed for us. He got us a clubhouse in the Cablevision building on Soundview Avenue right now. Cablevision is there. That was my clubhouse. We had a phone, a TV, stereo, everything. Then he got us a counselor. You might know this guy. His name is Neville Shedd. You ever heard of Neville Shedd? Neville Shedd, if you've ever seen the movie Glory Road, was one of the first basketball players to win an NCAA championship. And about 5-6 years ago, a movie came out about them. And it was very, very popular, did very well. He was our counselor.
Wow.
And he was very instrumental to me because he also helped me grow up. He helped me lead this crazy life and started thinking how you could do what you could do. But he wasn't around very long. He left, he went back out to wherever he was. And then we kind of fell back in disrepute again,
Uh-huh.
So he was very, again, this is all about the time where the schism was going on. Now he starts and tell us about jobs, why it's important to get work and jobs. So we, as a gang, we started infiltrating Pathmark. And at first we would say, you don't give us jobs, we're gonna come in, you're not gonna rest.
Yeah.
And we took several actions, and eventually they gave me a job. They thought that was going to, I worked at Pathmark the longest. Okay? They gave me a job, and that was supposed to quell everything, but that wasn't. I had already been trained by many of the activists already that that's what they're going to do, and that's not going to work.
Uh-huh.
So eventually, that didn't work, and they had to hire more of my people, and then they started hiring regular people, and then they gave me the best job in the world. They gave me, every day they would give me $300 in singles. And I would walk from my neighborhood, Watson Avenue, through the neighborhood, and I would yell, anybody want to work? I need baggers. And I would yell, 3 o'clock, I'd be walking, I got this money in my pocket, baggers, I need baggers. And they would give me a deck of time cards. So let's say you follow me to Pathmark and you want to work, you have to get up early. I'd be out there 7 o'clock, yelling through the neighborhood, people, I'm like, yo, you want to work? I got baggers. I need baggers. And by the time I get to Pathmark, I would have like 20, 30 kids. And I would put them on the road, and then I give them each a time card, tell them to clock in, and they work to 12, and I pay them, they go home.
Wow.
Well, that job made me immensely popular.
I bet.
And I became like the Mr. Pathmark. I started getting some of the Spades who wanted to work into work. The others who didn't continued to go and do what they did. And that didn't work for them. Some of them fell in line and came and worked for Pathmark like I did. And had some great careers. I mean, I started as a security overnight guy, working in the meat department, I was a district manager for Pathmark.
Wow.
I had company cars. I had over a $5 million budget. I had all the stores in Pathmark that were in the Bronx and Queens. I had a company car, expense account.
Wow.
I did very well with Pathmark, and several people from the community who I opened to, like a guy named Tony Watts became a store manager. My brother became a manager. Even Desi, one of the first division guys, became a night manager. Fat Mike, who no longer with us, started working there. And then I just opened it up to the community. But we had some issues there because they had a cab company there and some people working in there who were, and I kind of want to say that, but we had to move them out in order to move Black and Latino folks in. And
Sure.
that became the thing. I had to run for my life a little bit, because we did some things, and that was a very, very hairy time for my family.
I bet.
But we eventually did get Pathmark, and we just flooded it with people. And I began to do one of the other things is once we got a hold of Pathmark like we wanted to, I began to feed the people in the third section of the project was a bunch of senior citizens who weren't getting fed. So I instructed my guys to get the carts of food that was bent or whatever. We're gonna put it over there. We're gonna take that food. So we had a little thing running food up and down to the floors in the third section, not so much in the first section. For some reason, the third section was a little less. I don't know. Well, wasn't doing that well, but we started delivering food to old people. That was one of the first things we did as an organization to give back. Besides the stuff we did earlier. So we opened up Pathmark. I began to meet a lot of politicians, Senator Gallagher, a couple other people who began to help us because we were leaving the spade garbage behind and moving towards activism. But there was, of course, between that, there's a lot of different things that were happening at the same time. It's just so much. Desi getting shot, and even though we were not doing crazy, we were still having gang fights. We were still going to gang rumbles. People were starting to get killed now. People were starting to get hurt now. The guns went from bats and sticks to knives to guns and automatic weapons. And we were all carrying automatic weapons all day long.
Wow.
I walked around with 232s. I had a homemade holster, and we were not doing great things, extorting people, neighborhood people didn't. We wanted to protect them. If you did, we're gonna protect you anyway.
Yeah.
And we're gonna want something for protection. So those type of things began to happen. That was between, as we're getting older now, we're 17 and 18, and things are starting to change, and life becomes more important now. And other faction of Spades continued making a name for themselves in the paper, but they began to dribble up too because of drugs, jail time, prison. And for a while they just disappeared.
Yeah.
But we were still using the Spade name.
Were there other black street organizations in the Bronx that the First Division had relationships with, like the Black Pearls?
We had the Black Pearls were our limits. They were our rivals. All right, and the Black Pearls, we had several gang rumbles with them down in their community up there. They attacked us. We attacked them. It was for me, it was one of the worst times because at that point, many of the black clubs, we were trying to become in solidarity with them because we were getting pushed back from all these other BLA, Black Liberation Army. You guys out there doing the wrong shit, we go to meetings, they tell us this is not working. You guys got rid. We need to come up and take over, So it was not for me. It wasn't a good time having this rivalry with the Pearls. All right, and then some of my guys were still some of my guys, Spade guys, were going down there instigating stuff with the Pearls, and then it will come back to us, and then we have you can't separate yourself at that point. So yeah, the Black Pearls were our rivals.
As Spade leadership, were you able to, on the flip side, able to broker any truces and any positive relationships?
I never got involved with truces. That was Bam Bam. We sent Bam Bam to the whole Avenue, I guess conciliatory meeting. I guess you guys might know about that.
Yeah,
where they had their gangs.
71.
That's I hate to say it, but that's a big bullshit.
Yeah.
First of all, they blame the Spades because we began, I believe, because of the input of the news and daily news and certain white individuals instigating, and police and different people began instigating this racial climate. So when Black Benji got killed, they immediately said it was the Spades. No one really knew who killed Black Benji except the kid that was with him.
Yep.
So at that point, there was so much, I believe, infiltration through COINTELPRO on us that they tried to get us to come to a meeting. And, the hierarchy of the Black Spades, we sat down, we had a meeting, said, we're not going to do that. Because we think at this meeting, this is the trap to get us in. Plus, we knew Ted Gross was going to be there. And a couple other people. Whoa, we're not going.
Yeah.
We actually attended a meeting with Ted Gross in Park Row, and he called the cops on us on the way out. We had to battle out there. They beat our asses from Park Row to the damn train station after calling us to a conciliatory meeting. we go outside and we're about to leave, and they got these guys, their white shirts and their blue helmets. They started whipping our ass coming out of there. So when they called the whole Avenue meeting, I didn't even think those people were going to show up, but they did. So we said, bam, bam. He went and he spoke a little bit, but the meeting ended. The greatest peacemakers in the gang era were the Ghetto Brothers. Yellow Benji, Charlie, those my boys. Now those guys, they were truly activists. Yeah. We lost our minds. The Ghetto Brothers, even though they fought, their little spot where 161st, they were all, you go by there Friday, you hear them play music. That's what they did. They played music. But when you fucked with them, they were ready. And they were quickly to organize because they were already natural social organizers.
Sure.
They were organizing their communities to do positive things. I used to go over there I was one of the lone Black Spades, would go over there, hang with them, smoke some weed, sit there and listen to them play music. And of course they had the fine women there. And we became very, very good friends until this action started happening and they had to take sides and became a Black Latino thing, which was conjured up by the newspapers. But that whole meeting didn't do shit.
Yep.
All right. All it did was introduce us to the Javelins, who were crazy. Those boys were Vietnam vets, and many of them, I believe, were drug addicts, but they were Vietnam vets. They had nice cars, and they'd kill you. Okay, we want to fight around a little bit, they'd kill you. So, that's what we found out about the Javelins going to that. Oh, these guys are bad. All right, we might have to do it, we have to get a little tougher with these guys, but that whole Avenue meeting, was just, the venue was great because they opened it up. We were able to go there sometime and party and, meet people and get out of there, but it's given more credit than it was.
That's right, because like you mentioned, rumbles continue to happen
all the time. After that, it didn't get any better. I remember the Seven Immortals. What's his name? The president of Seven Immortals. We got into something, a Soundview project, and it continued. It continued.
Yep. Absolutely. Did you all have a lot of run-ins with like the Savage Skulls, Savage Nomads?
Savage Skulls were, we liked the Savage Skulls, but again, it was racial animosity, They were mostly Latino. Now here's the thing, the Savage Nomads, which was a Latin gang, was headed by a Black man. Black Benji. You guys know anything about him? All right, really, he was from the Caribbean, but could speak Spanish. So he was able to garner his group, and mostly when you saw him, he was speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
But he was one of our rivals. We had a couple of rumbles with them. Nothing all out. I don't think. Nothing all out, but we had some stuff with them. Seven Immortals, Savage Skulls, they were crazy, but we kind of got along with them because we both liked to wear stomper boots and stuff like that. Our dress was really crazy, so they kind of, I don't remember having too much against them. Again, mostly, some of the stuff, I hate to say, it was just us killing each other.
Yeah.
Any interactions with the bachelors? Any of the bachelor groups?
The bachelors, 140th Street right there, right? Cypress?
Right.
Man. They, actually, I believe, Oscar
the Cypress
is familiar with them, and about 10 years ago, we got into a conversation about them because I got hit in the head with a bat by these guys, and that was the pool stick guy. No, I don't remember now. Yeah. Anyway, I got knocked out by these guys. I was normally unconscious. I was able to get to a bus and get the hell home or whatever, but they were a pretty tough group. They weren't expansive like we were.
Yeah, sure.
They stayed pretty local where they were in their neighborhood. But that was another one, racial stuff, started by these damn folks. But yeah, man. Yes.
Now,
it's all these memories, man.
You
rushing on.
You mentioned all the different divisions of the Black Spades. were you the type of person where you go to these different parts of New York and go, really around?
Originally, I was. We had to, because we expanded so quickly. We weren't able to control. Like we had a division in Washington Avenue. Now, those guys were really tough. So I had spent a lot of time on Washington Avenue because they shoot somebody with, yo, you can't do that. You can't, we had to go over there. Or we had to formulate. So Throgs Neck, Washington Avenue. We had a second in Philadelphia I used to go down to. Yeah, we used to, we had to go. That was really important in keeping this thing together. Spent a lot of time at Throgs Neck. We had a group up there, a chapter there. Monroe Projects in the local, we didn't have to worry about too much. We had a guy named, who was the Monroe guy? I forget his name. Oh man, he took care of Monroe. He was a short guy, but he ruled with a big stick, so we never had to. Our problem was trying to keep all these guys from killing each other, killing other people. All right, we were smart enough in the first division to know that we started something that was getting out of control. We couldn't control it, so the cops we had to control it. And the different, memories just flooding my head at one time.
And you mentioned, some of the different radical revolutionary groups that tried to, recruit you or were in your orbit. Do you want to talk some about, if you remember, like some of the individuals that were parts of these groups? Were they in the community? Were they, kind of from other parts of New York that would, come in?
Well, most of the guys who were probably knew me, who tried to recruit me, are probably dead and gone.
Yeah.
I don't want. I know a few names that I don't want to. For
sure.
Put out there, but no, they were not in the community. They heard of us and came to the community. I remember the Panthers, for example, recruiting us for like 2 days. They came to the neighborhood. They walked around. They went to our clubhouse. We opened the clubhouse for them. We showed them what we got, what we were doing. Showed them our guns. We had this because we were pretty. I'm telling you, we were pretty damn organized. We had all this stuff here, and they saw we were serious. But they knew that many of us weren't. That I was serious, and maybe a couple of us. So they didn't stay long. But the Republic of New Africa, which was a group that really tried to recruit us strongly and invite us down to different things. But these groups they might have been radical to most Americans, but these groups were doing things in the community. Like, they taught me, like, I would open Pathmark up for food, give food away, and I learned that from them. All the breakfast pantry organizations I started, I learned that from them. We were trying to do that too.
Absolutely.
And those organizations, these Republic of New Africa, this is what they were trying to do. They were struggling for a really good cause. I still believe in their cause.
That's right.
It's unfortunate that this is still not going on. I mean, our folks are. We're just so caught up in ourselves. We don't see anything besides what's in front of us and gratifying ourselves all day through music and drugs and dancing and drinking. I wish for those times again.
Yeah. Because
people were active and thinking about doing something in their community and taking risk. See, that's what I think we're missing now. We're not taking the risk anymore. You have to take risk. I took a lot of risk. That I'm here. I tell my wife often, I never thought I was going to live to 25.
Yeah.
I never thought I'm living to where I am now. And I didn't take the risk that the other spades took, where they were going to community do. That wasn't the way I thought about taking risks. I took a risk by saying, I'm going to do something that might land me dead or in a jail. And we were taught by these guys that if you engage in this activity, you have to be ready to take the consequences.
Yeah.
So one thing was hammered into us through these groups was that you ain't going home to watch TV, man.
Yeah.
You do this, you're gonna get locked up. You're not gonna come. So with those things in mind, we said we still got to do this. Now, we never took a commitment like those guys did, because they're dead. That's the ultimate commitment.
That's right.
But we were not afraid to do that. I was not afraid to do that.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of things that I risked my life to do, but I always did for my community. I love my community. I opened up Pathmark for my community. When I worked for Pathmark, when I was a district manager, I secured $20,000 from them to rebuild Rosedale Park. I did that. I didn't do it. I didn't make nothing off the top. I didn't skim nothing from the construction agency. I could have, but I didn't want to do that. So we redid the building. We put up new basketball courts. We put the new handball court for our Latino brothers and sisters that love handball. I did that in Rosedale Park while I was an administrator with them. I continued to do. I recently went back to my neighborhood to try to teach Black history in the community center there, but the people that there did not see the vision in me doing something like that. I told them they didn't want it to happen. This is an example of where we had gone. This is an example where the Spades have failed, where we failed, because I really wanted this to be, we really wanted this to be something that was going to move our community and move on. We almost had it there. We almost had it. We had politicians listening to us. We had even the dope guys in the community who sold dope, didn't mess with us and stayed out of our way. And we stayed out of their way as much as we could. Mm-hmm. But what we have morphed into, I'm watching Monk and Fat Mike on YouTube the other day. I know I mentioned this before, and they're talking about how we the real Spades. Yeah, you the real Spades. But that's not what we wanted to represent. And where they went is not where I wanted this to go. We still have some resentments amongst us, but we get along. When Fat Mike died, we all got there and came together and we hugged and still love each other, but we could have done so much more. Just the Pathmark situation, major supermarket, what we did there. I mean, I can't tell you how many thousands of people we put in their positions and how many people made careers and lives from that. And particularly as Pathmark expanded, people started working in other places. So that's one of the good things that we did. Absolutely. In the community.
Absolutely. But I just gotta say, and that's where I met him.
Yes.
Pathmark, huh?
Yes, that's
wow. So led to your wife too.
I lived in Beach with my mom, and I went to go visit my sister, and I was running to Pathmark because she worked there. So I go up, and I had my cousin pick me up, and I walk. I see this guy. I'm like, oh my God, who is that guy? But I went to boarding school in Pennsylvania, and I saw him on television. I was 14, and I was like,
people in my family don't believe this story.
Who is that guy? I'm like, I'm gonna marry him. I was 14 years old. Mm-hmm. 4 years later, I'm 18. I go to Pathmark, and I see this guy, and I'm like, oh my God. I didn't realize that was the guy that I saw when I was in boarding school.
Wow.
In McSherrystown, Pennsylvania. Wow.
And just
that was it.
And for the viewers, could you introduce your lovely wife?
Yes, my lovely wife, Magali Hicks. Come over here.
Yeah.
This is my lovely Cubana. Yes. This is Magali Hicks. And I met her at Pathmark.
Yep.
While I was leaving my spade days. And she saw me on the David Susskind show, and she said, I'm going to marry a guy. And guess what?
Amazing.
She did.
Wow.
And I met him 4 years later.
4 years later.
I was living in Miami Beach with my mom, because I was always back and forth. That's where we lived. And I came to see my sister, and there's this guy. I'm like, and my cousin Ernie, who passed away, that everybody knew who
worked for me too.
He was a Latin promoter, big time downtown.
Yes, he was.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I see him, and it was love at first sight. I had to beat up a lot of girls.
There you go.
45 years.
But he saved my life. Yeah. He did.
Thank you, Magali.
Yeah, that's my queen. And she's a principal of she was a principal. She retired.
Just retired.
She's twice a principal, and I was she actually brought me into education because I was coaching basketball for like 15, 20 years, thinking that was a way to reach kids. Unfortunately, that wasn't the way to reach kids. And though I had a decent basketball career, not the greatest, but the decent basketball career, it didn't. It led me to drinking. Began to drink more. Couldn't control myself from drinking, and decided that I needed to get some help. I got some help, I went from there, and now, and I just went from after that. I just went focusing on to my history and immersing myself in my history and doing lectures. I do speaking engagements. I talk to high school kids. I do all the stuff. I had a page I was doing lectures on the page to students on the internet for a while, and I'm still looking to do something on Messenger, some history stuff, Black history. But I'm a warrior historian.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
That's what I am. I'm a warrior historian.
You know, unfortunately, you mentioned, you know, more recent attempts to reach those community members over in Bronxdale. Can you talk to us about the community, the Tenant Association, and how you were received by that community back in the early 70s as opposed to today?
We were, again, the parents were still brave enough to sit in the community hallways, and the police recognized that they were there, so you could also get, but basically these were brave parents who sat there and sitting there with these parents and you know, engaging with people coming into your building who don't want to do the right thing. That was very, I don't know, I you know, some of it I don't remember per se, but I do remember my mother jumping in a couple of people's faces and stuff like that. So, and other parents, the neighborhood in general was, I know it sounds cliche, but it was a community.
Yeah, sure.
It really was. I knew the parent over there, their parents knew my parents, and it was not that they were all in each other's houses because people were working back then, but we all knew each other. We all had the similar goals. Everybody wanted to be something. Everybody wanted to be something. It's nothing like what I see now. I mean, when I was teaching history at Lehman High School, you know, everyone wanted to be a rapper. You know, and I could not find, I exhausted the ways that I could let them understand that this requires work. And many of those people who you see are rappers went to college. I mean, a lot of these major rappers got college in them. They didn't just come out of this, you know, jump out of the projects and start doing it. Some did, but they didn't. So the community, I don't know if I'm staying on point here, but the community aspect of what we had just blew up. Just blew up. I know poverty had a lot to do with it. Lost a lot of, different mayors came in, different political administrations. You lose a lot of funding.
That's right.
And back then I was about to run for my uncle. My uncle was a number man in the neighborhood. He wanted me to run for politics because I could talk my ass off. And he was going to put some money out. But when I quickly realized, when I tried to start doing that, these guys were all corrupt. And unfortunately with me, I ain't going to never be rich because I ain't corrupt, man. I ain't taking nothing from nobody. Not from my folks. I can't do that. I watched so many poverty pimps, forget about it. I was watching them steal the money.
Yep.
You know, it was insane. So I couldn't do it, so I knew I couldn't be a politician. I can't. I'm not a good liar. I don't lie very well.
Now, when the Spades took over Pathmark, were you able to involve any other groups from the community? Like, were there parents or anything like that?
No, I mostly just found I would put out job notices. I would flood the neighborhood saying there are jobs available here, and I would do that through this guy, Reese Wright, and then we would sit outside and tell people we have work here. Because again, Pathmark originally did not have any Black or Latino people in there at all. And we went in there and changed that. And then we would recruit our own through word of mouth. You want a job? What can you do? You can do it? Then we started getting the older people involved. Because there were old people who needed work. So we started putting them, this is as we were maturing now, not originally, but then we're putting them in. And before you know it, we own Pathmark. We own managers in there. They put a Black man, that's when I knew we did the right thing. They put a Black manager in there, Bill Holmes.
Wow. Bill
Holmes played basketball for the Nets. Yes. And Jeff Richardson, you ever heard of him? Come on, guys. No football fans here? Number 76, New York Jets championship. Yeah. He played Joe Namath. He became, Pathmark hired him as the executive director, and he ran all the Pathmarks in the tri-state area.
Wow. And
he was in charge of security. And he was one of my mentors, and he played for the Jets. And look him up, Jeff Richardson. He's always telling, he walks around with a Super Bowl ring, and he was one of my mentors. He trained me and taught me how to act like a man and stand up. He was a great guy. He's still around. I shouldn't say he was. He's still around.
Wow.
But those were my mentors. Neville Shedd, him, Reese Wright. I had some great. There's so many people in the community that went on and did well. You know, and I tried my best. Though I was a thug and a knucklehead, I tried my best to stay in that lane because I had to remind myself my mother's always in the back of my head. You just do for your community. Do for your folks. And my mother was an avid follower of Martin. Only thing she didn't do, because she would get told she couldn't march with him. But I had to get, everything. Money, everything. So that was important.
And you mentioned your mom just now. This is something that hasn't come up so far, but what do you remember eating in your household growing up? I know this is going back a little bit.
Fried chicken, black-eyed peas, and rice, and sweet potatoes, lima beans, and then fried chicken. My mother used to cook some fried chicken. I used to stuff it in my pockets, go downstairs. Tell my boys, yo, guess what? I got fried chicken. You want to hang out? You gotta let me hang out. My boys are like me. I talk too much, so they like, a lot of times they want me around. Oh, here he comes. Oh, come on, man, I got some chicken. Come on over here. They come in, I give him chicken. He can hang now. Otherwise, I'll get Chuck out. He's always lecturing, you know what I mean? He wants to start a club.
His mother was one of the strongest women I ever met. Like, if it wasn't for her, I don't know where I would be.
She started Meals on Wheels.
She was an amazing woman. She
was one of
superintendent of Sunday School, First Corinthian Baptist Church, and she was a leader.
She was one of the persons who started with Meals on Wheels.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Miss Critchlow, Bernard White. You ever heard of Bernard White? WBAI for 20 years. He was there.
Okay. Yeah.
He had his own. He used to babysit me. And he was a great activist. His family came from great actors. They were from Lincoln Projects in Manhattan.
Okay.
Yeah, Bernard White, big television personality. I know him too. He used to take care of me.
Do you recall any family gatherings or events where you can talk about, the meals and the music you guys enjoyed as a family at home during those times?
No.
Okay.
No. It was just me and my brother and my mom. My dad passed away, my mom remarried, and this man who she remarried was a total businessman, so didn't have much time, wasn't home very much, came home about 12 o'clock at night because he was tending to his businesses. And, pretty much me and my brother were at a stage where we really didn't need his help, but, he was there. But we didn't have family gatherings and stuff like that. My mother worked as I told you before, she got home every day at 5 o'clock. We would kind of let ourselves in and out.
Right.
We made our own pizza, made our own chicken, made our own lunch. We didn't have time to sit around and have no family meals. We didn't do that.
Sure.
But I did that with my Latino friends because, I happened to grow up mostly with Latinos because my friends in my building were predominantly Spanish, and Johnny on the 7th floor, everybody else was Spanish. And I forged even the Spades, many of them did not join me with the Spade thing, right? They kind of went the other way, particularly with Black Spades. And we never brought racial stuff into our lives, And then here I am now, Black Spades, I grew up with all these Latino guys, and like, whoa, so they kind of moved to the right. They're still my friends to this day. But we didn't have that stuff. My mother worked her ass off, and me and my brother kind of raised ourselves as much as we could, but she gave us a very good, strong grounding. Very good, strong grounding. Like everything else, drugs and stuff come into the community, and things change, and we become gang members, and there's just so much more to tell.
Do you recall during those elementary and middle school years, and even coming up, any of the block parties in Bronxdale, any mute jams in the park?
Mario.
Talk to us.
Mario started all the block parties. We never, our block parties were maybe YSA, Youth Services Agency, coming in and putting up something. That wasn't even a block party because
events.
But remember, the disco scene is when the parks became explosive because these guys would bring out their sets and put them inside the park and get the electricity from the lamp post in, like Mario used to do it, and wire that shit up and start playing music. So music wasn't played like it is, like we're so familiar with now back then. Block parties were just something didn't really happen a lot.
Yeah.
Now Mario comes and starts these block parties. Boy, we enjoyed the hell out of them damn things. You know, not just from partying, but mostly meeting so many people and the girls and the dancing and then the after party, you know. So block parties in our community really started when Mario started cutting his bones there, cutting his teeth there, man.
Got it.
Do you remember how people would dress at some of these early block parties? I mean, obviously, you were maybe still in your colors.
Yeah, we were in our colors and our stomping boots.
Yeah,
that's what we wore. You couldn't even walk around without stomping boots on. But back in the day, you know, bell bottoms. Did those shoes, the marshmallow shoes, did they come out then? You had the big heels like this. You stand 10 feet tall, the marshmallow with the. Once in a while when we did get dressed, we didn't believe in getting dressed, by the way. You couldn't do that. All right, but when we did, we get the big lapel shirts and the packer. Remember the alpaca sweaters at one time in New York was a big popular thing. Alpacas and the sweaters and all that stuff. That was really popular. But jeans, bell bottoms. But you couldn't find no spades in that 6-year period that we were really. Let me see, is that 6 years? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, about 6, 7 years that we existed. We wouldn't dress like everybody else. You couldn't get your ass kicked.
And how was Mario? What kind of dresser was he? I've heard
he was he was a pretty sharp dresser. In the beginning, he wasn't, but he became a sharp dresser, bell bottom, big hat. He's with his wonderful hat. He used to do the. They call it the Mario roll, where he rolled like this, man. All the girls would go crazy. He would do, I forgot that, Fat Mike and them knew the name of that shit. And he would just go crazy. Now remember, I'm older than all these guys.
Yes.
I'm the oldest. I'm 70 now. These guys, most of them are a year, 2 years younger than me. So I'm moving, all right, with the old, and I've always wanted to be with the older guys anyway, so I didn't like hanging with them. I was hanging out with all the guys who came home from Vietnam. Brother Cool, Brother Sims, Snoopy, a couple other guys who I read. I wanted to learn radicalism. I wanted to be out there. I wanted to make change. So I was hanging out with them. My guys were doing other things. But eventually I come back and join them and, kept them, try to keep them from killing themselves. But that's what that became. They became very, very volatile group. Very volatile. Very dangerous. Very dangerous. Here's a good story. We patrolled the community. So when they were building Brooklyn Boulevard, it was a dangerous area because there was no lights there. So you had White Castle, then you had this big lot, and just people were doing all kind of shit. So we started watching the community walk. So one particular night I'm doing it, and I catch my boys in the act of raping a little girl, Catholic school girl. And so I'm watching, I'm approaching the scene, and I can't detect who that is. And at that time we carried these knives. We didn't always see, we were smart enough not to carry guns. The older guys from the LB, all these groups were teaching us you can't walk around fire, because we used to walk around, I used to walk around 232s like this, and you can't do that. So we started carrying these little knives called Kit Kat knives. And you could oil them and they would flip out real quick, and I always kept one with me. But I was a martial artist, so I always thought I could, I would normally in the dojo take on 2 or 3 guys and see how we could do. And by this time, I'm about a black belt, I'm a brown black belt. Anyway, I see my boys, I notice my guys, because I could see the colors. We used to wear fur on our colors, and I'd see this little girl, what the fuck is going on? So I get on over there, I see 4 of my guys, they got this little girl with her pants up, her dress up, her panties down, and they're about to do their thing. So I don't, fuck y'all, do your fuck about y'all. Now, they're so in heated passion, they ain't giving up. They're like, yo, get the fuck out of here, Goop. I said, get the fuck out of here. And at that point, I pull out my fucking knife, all right? I said, you motherfuckers take her, I'm gonna take one of you motherfuckers with me. So they pull out their shit. Now we gotta stand up, little girl on the ground, stay laying there crying. And I think I talked my way out of it by saying, okay, I just want you guys, oh yeah, I remember saying, I said, I just want you guys to know, when you do me, my brother Snoop, you know how crazy he is, right? He's gonna cut your neck and he's gonna suck your blood. And you don't know him. He's been to Vietnam, he's done it already. So you go ahead and stick me, but you're not gonna rape this little girl. So finally they came to their senses and now they get the girl, and she was, Lafayette had just been built, Lafayette Projects, Lafayette Houses, and I think she ran on the way and whatever. But that's how crazy we were getting.
Wow.
That's just one example.
Sure.
Again, I won't mention any names with that, but some of them are still living. That's just one. Some other instances, they would go out into Valentine Avenue, became very popular with them. And they would go in there, cadres, 3 at a time. And they did some mess over there. Anyway, Snoopy somehow corralled them into our clubhouse. And one of his other Marine, I wasn't involved in this one, but one of his other Marine boys, I was there though. And he just, we were using these bamboo swords at the time. And he just let the beating the shit out of them with these swords. And that didn't deter them. I didn't care. Most of them ran out and, continued to do their thing. But it was killing all of us because the cops are coming in, locking in. I could be walking the path, my cops, hey, over here, come on, you're going to 43rd Precinct. We want to hear what you got to say. What? Because the 43rd is right there. So and I knew most of the cops. But yeah, it was a trying time that a whole bunch of shit was going on. A whole bunch of no good shit. And that right now I get angry because I see them on YouTube making these remarks like, what are they proud of that shit? Are you guys proud of that? That's something to be talked about on YouTube, that you were outlaw? This is why I've broken away, even with the Black Spades film that they made just recently. I didn't partake in the second half of that because I don't see it promoting anything positive in my community.
Yeah.
And I got involved with it because I thought that's what they were going to do.
Yeah.
But I don't see it, and I'm not saying that it's not a worthy cause, and maybe there's something's going to happen with it, but this has got to be about growth, man. I'm sitting here because I'm hoping that some kid sees this and realizes that, you know what, I can be like Group. Okay? I came from the project. My mother had shit. My father died. My mother told me this is what I need to do. I got myself in trouble, and I got myself out of trouble. And I realized that I do nothing for my folks when I screw myself up. And I had to love me first. And many of those days I did not love me first. That's why I did things I did. I have trauma from things that I did. I'm like a soldier. There's no way that anyone who's been involved in this like I have could even talk about certain things. There's just certain things you don't even want to think about. Like, soldiers who go to war, come back with PTSD. And many of us are suffering from that. I know I am.
Sure.
I mean, I'd love to sit there and tell you everything that happened, but because it gets a little bit off my chest, I don't talk about this to my wife, to my kids, or to nobody. But I'm doing this because I'm hoping that this will reach you, whoever you are. That we must move for our community. There's no way of making this alone. There's no way that we're going to do this by ourselves. There's no pull yourself up by your bootstrap shit. You got to help each other. Each one teach one. In my school, when I taught history, my principal, he's dead now, so he won't get upset. But I closed my door, put a shade on my window, and I taught the real history.
Yeah.
I taught history the real way, what really happened. And then I taught the curriculum. And guess what? My son saw one of my students is an Italian guy and lived over by Morris Park. He used to be a pain in the ass in my group, but he used to love to hear me talk. I talked about race. I talked about ethnicity. Mm-hmm. I never got a parent call me back and say, why you say that to me? Never. Because I told the truth, and the kids, no matter who they are, want to hear the truth. They want to hear the truth. You don't have to be afraid Give it to them. I shut my door, I closed the door, I took a risk. I didn't mind. They would have caught me, I would have taught the same thing next day. I don't care.
Yeah.
But I taught them, and so to this day, I still got them calling me, telling me they love for telling. And now they're realizing, because I used to tell my kids one thing: the only course that you're going to take in this school that's going to be relevant to you when you leave it is history. Unless you're going to be a scientist, math ain't going to help you. Science ain't going to help you. English, if you'll be English teacher, ain't going to help you. But history, you could use it as a guideline, a guide rail, forever.
Absolutely.
Ashe.
Ashe. Now you mentioned you've obviously spoken a lot about the takeover of Pathmark. You mentioned the takeover of Lincoln Hospital. This is
We were just a part of that. The Young Lords took that over.
That's right.
But that's where I met Felipe.
Okay, that's where you met him. Okay,
Yeah, because actually many years later, my wife needed someone to do a keynote speaker, and I called him up. He don't remember me. I said, "Yo, man, remember from the Black Spades? I need you to do something for my wife." "Oh yeah, I'll be." He's a great guy.
Wow.
He's crazy.
Wow.
So sure enough, he was there, and he did it. He did a great job, and he was great. And but I'm sorry to cut you.
Oh no, that's fine. I know at least maybe it was the division that Wildman was in at the Spades.
Mm-hmm.
Had some type of thing going on at Fordham, even where they had the Black Student Center kind of for a while. I'm just curious, other sites in the Bronx that the Black Spades were doing positive things.
Yes, there's like you might be talking about Wild Childs of the 22nd Division. I could not verify that. I could not deny or say, but we again, and that's another thing. I'm probably remiss. There were other divisions of Spades that were doing great things too in their community. I can't say that I was there with them doing it, but I know they were.
Sure.
And I was so consumed with what I was doing and trying to focus here. I don't know, but I don't know. I can't tell you and verify what they did, but I know that there were some doing many really good things. And as you guys know, guys now taking over the Black Spade, new direction. I don't know, familiar with Tiny? You guys familiar with Tiny?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. I love Tiny to death, and I love what he's doing in the community because that's what I thought should happen. I'm not. Should I say in solidarity with some of the people who support him? I don't. The Scientology thing that he's embraced with. I don't believe in that. That is not where the Black Spade should be. But if that's what he feels is helping him, and by the way, I'm not out there giving food out every day. He is. I'm not out there opening up trucks. He is. He's doing the work. He deserves all the credit, accolades for what he does. But I was supporting him in a way before actually I had him do some work with my wife, but I'm no longer supporting him because of his association with the Scientology group. I will not support him for that. But I appreciate what he's doing in the community, and sometimes you have to separate. And I ain't gotta like him, but what he's doing is very, very important, really important. So God bless him. But it's where we have our different beliefs.
Do you, going back and talking about chapters and certain divisions of the Black Spades, do you have were the baby spades in evolution during your time?
Yes.
And can you talk about that evolution and how that came about?
Well, David, Tex, DJ, Hollywood, you guys should, if not, I'll get you guys to talk to him. He's got a wealth of information. Him and Bambaataa, I elected to be president and vice president. They had a group of guys might know about Sosky and them who were killed by the police up there in Pelham Bay. And but I will say that Bambaataa was instrumental in organizing kids. Okay, so with everything he was giving, records, doing these parties all over the place. He had a group of kids following him and helping him with records, and he's teaching at the same time some of the Black history that they don't know. And him and Tex are also involved in their little gang activities. So they got little Bronx River, they taking over Bronx River, they running shit, they get their little colors. But they didn't do that long. They didn't. Tex, for example, was a great basketball player. He used to play ball, and actually I used to go play ball with him. And he became a DJ. Mario was right along in that same thing. When even though Mario's a little older than them, they were like the same thing. Then here come Bambaataa with Bronx River, which was popping. And Bambaataa was very, very popular there. And he was giving out his message. So they were not gangbanging so much. Soski and that crew kind of went out and gangbanged, and it didn't work out well for them, but they were good kids. I remember them well too. And I would try to keep them under my spell for a while, and they listened for a while, but after a while they began to build their own thing, and I became disconnected from them. So the Young Spades maybe lasted maybe a year. Because after that, they were not wearing colors anymore like they were, and they were doing music. At least I know Tex D was, and so was African Bambaataa.
Sure.
So that Young Spades stuff didn't last long. Now other people might have picked up the mantle and ran with it, but not how would I, under our the jurisdiction that we allowed that to happen. Because, you know, we were such that if you wore a spade jacket, and we found out, we'd go there. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I went to Soundview Project for these kids walking around without colors on doing shit. We had to go over there and, you know, take care of business, you know? So that was another thing that we got around and had to do. But going back to your question with that, no, I'm thinking, no, I'm losing my consciousness. Okay, we're good.
So were you still connected with Bambaataa when the Zulus came about and all of that?
Not connected with him. See, Bambaataa did that himself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That was his baby. Again, the Zulu Nation was following some of Bambaata's teaching that he was learning from his uncle.
Yeah.
And he was much more advanced in this learning than they were. So Zulu Nation, they probably didn't understand what a Zulu was until Bambaataa said, hey man, this is what we're gonna do, you're gonna be with me. But no, I wasn't with, I couldn't claim fame to that or know what these guys were doing.
Sure.
Yeah, that's one of the things about being ahead of something. You're not, you know, sometimes you lose contact with what's going on in the field.
That's right.
And then that at some point I'm moving into that direction.
And I hope I'm not kind of repeating, but how about the beginnings of the Zulu Kings? You recall any of that?
No, I just recall putting Bambaataa and Tex into position, but the Zulu Nation took off on another errand. Plus, most of them were in Bronx River projects.
That's right.
All right, and even though we were spades, like Bronx River and Bronxdale always had a rivalry, you know. You know, only thing we loved about them, they had the more girls over there. They had the girls, so Bronx River was known to go for the girls, but the Zulu Nation was a kind of a Bronx River thing, and then it kind of spread out a little bit, but it was more music.
Yeah.
It wasn't, you know, they wasn't doing anything criminally, you know. Well, I would almost consider they were good kids, but, you know, unlike us.
What about was there much of a presence of graff in the neighborhood in the late 60s, early 70s? Do you remember? Tagging, graffiti, things like that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now, that's another thing. You know what? That's a gang thing. Started out as a gang thing. You know, we paint the subways up and all that stuff like that. But that's another thing that moved away from us. Because now these artists, and I used to know them. I don't remember any of their names now. Some of them, a lot of the kids are dead.
Yeah, sure.
Because even though they weren't gang and hanging out with gang and getting that type of activity, they were in other activities. But we started that tag. I never tagged before in my life.
Yeah.
See, because my mother, hear my mother tell me, wash those walls in the hallway because somebody wrote on them. You know, I didn't have that thing.
Sure.
And I can't even remember any of my first division guys being in that. That's something that we started because we would put our name on certain, but then that thing took off to artists. They started, these artists started picking that up and they became, whoa. And then they became friendly with us. Some of them would, you know, be friendly with us because, you know, we kind of gave them protection. But tagging, no. I never really went for that shit.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. Were there any of the go-to guys in the first division that would do like the colors?
Oh, yeah. Well, one I was mentioning Freight Train,
Yeah.
who started the song. Don't mess with the spades. No, 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 no. Don't mess with the spades. You better leave them alone. Don't mess with the spades. You better go on home. Don't mess with the spades. Why? The spades are the guys that put tears in your eyes. Will fuck you up more and more. Hey, you better get in opposition or something with competition. Will fuck you up wherever you go. As of today, we're in the spades. Don't fuck with the spades.
We did not expect that. Right? That is awesome. But kind of sticking on that, that's a good segue, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Freight Train was out. He made all our colors.
Wow.
And our
Okay.
songs.
And the songs too.
you know, there are a lot of short videos out on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Talking about certain clubs like the Plaza Tunnel.
Oh, the tunnel. Oh.
Right. Can you talk to us about that? And then the chant, to stick with it, spade power, taking
Oh,
off.
that's what we got. That's where the spade power. That's where we started. Now that was just one of the songs. But then
Talk to us.
the spade power song was a lead off from James Brown's because James Brown was the only artist making radical music like Black Power. Man. So one of his records, we got the spade power. So we get in the tunnel and we go in with our boots. Because remember, everybody else was wearing their bell bottom and shit. But when we came to the door, we had all kind of shit hanging on our uniform, our chains hanging off us, and some guys had chains on their back, and they let us in there, and we would dance, and then we'd wreck hell in the tunnel. There was always I could see myself running out the tunnel 2 or 3 times with my big boots trying to get out of there because of either a shooting or stabbing. Oh, the tunnel was fucking crazy. Man, you guys are really conjuring up now. And I believe that's where Mario cut his bones at too.
Okay.
At the tunnel. But the tunnel for me was a dance, meet girls, and getting shit and trying to get the hell home. But we tore that tunnel up. A lot of disco, man. A lot of dancing, man. Jumping on the floor, doing the head with the... Oh, forget about it. And I could dance my ass off, so I enjoy going on to the tunnel. Yeah, tunnel was a lot of shit. I'm not sure if I remember anyone getting killed there. Because whenever we had venues like that, I hate to say it, man, somebody always got stabbed. I mean, we went up to Fat Mike. We went up to a party in where was it? Castle Hill, and Castle was a place where black people couldn't go up there years ago. But now, fuck that, we going up there, and we got up there and got at a house party, and I wasn't there. But all I remember, Fat Mike coming back with a big stab wound in his back, and so there was never a party you went to, you didn't come back without a wound or somebody either get, killed, or I don't want to say killed so much, but cut, shot, something like, in that realm. Parties were never ended well, but no matter where we went. So those were always very volatile times. But the tunnel was, we crashed that tunnel. The tunnel was it only lasted for about, I don't even know it was open a year. Because they closed down because there was so much shit going on in there. Tunnel. Wow, man, you guys are really reaching.
And that was in the old Concourse Plaza.
Concourse Plaza, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I can see myself running out of it right now.
Now, I'm going to take a stretch, right? White Castle's not too far from you guys, right? It's a little walk.
Right there, yeah.
Was that that parking lot, a popular after club hangout?
Well, that's after they took the girls. Remember, the White Castle used to have girls on skates with little short skirts.
Okay.
All right, and then they stopped that. And then we kind of took White Castle over. So White Castle was the place where we met. Like a lot of times before we had rumbles, particularly going into the South Bronx. So we didn't have too many rumbles in the northeast part of the Bronx. We would have to go to the rumble. So we would get busted. I remember we would get busted by the droves because the cops were waiting for the train station. The only way we had to go was train. So, White Castle was the plot to stop where we met. We sometimes would get our cache of weapons and hide them somewhere. And there was a big part. There's like a big boulder. What do you call it? a big rock that's in the back of White Castle that used to be like we could put stuff and store stuff there. I think it's gone now, but the White Castle was a place where we met, where we did our shit, where we partied sometime. Of course, where we ate, and drove the managers there crazy. But it was also for school. Like when we went to 123, we went to White Castle first before we went to school. You know, we ate the hamburgers that they throw them at each other. You know, you know what I mean? Take somebody else's hamburgers. You know what I mean? Take somebody's money to eat hamburgers. I mean, one of our favorite tricks was they would leave the tips on the table back then. You know, so if we just take the tips and take them all. Oh, we need some hamburgers. Oh, we wait outside. We take your hamburgers. Oh, you coming inside? We see you dressed nice. We take your money, get the hamburgers.
Do you remember other, restaurants or stores or things like that you go to?
Yeah, Wetson's on what was the hamburger spot that was right across from Stevenson. It's not there no more. It used to be a hamburger place. And we used to go there, and that's another place where we wind up fighting all the time. What is the name of that place? When these would be little, one-on-ones or 2-on-2s or 3-on-3s. Because sure. Back in that time, there was this thing about one-on-one. So sometimes we'd be 7 of us, and we might go, you know what, man, just give me your best guy. We ain't going to come back. We ain't going to have no war council. We're going to do it right here. You get your best guy, and I was sometimes that guy. I had to go on one-on-ones. I did that a lot, and that saved the whole big gang fight, but I can't remember the name of the hamburger joint, but that was a place where you staged and then you went. It could be going to school, it could be going to a club, or it could be going to some fight, But yes, that was the hamburger. I don't remember the name, but I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
I know Steven had asked you earlier, what you guys wore, where'd you get your colors? Where'd you get your stomp boots?
We took it from the Hells Angels. We used to always watch those biker movies back then. We'd go down to 46, we cut class. We do 2 things. We cut class for 2 reasons. Go watch porn movies on 42nd Street and go watch bike movies.
Uh-huh.
And we saw the Hells Angels, so we started to, mimic them, man. And we started wearing the big boots. We had to go to Frank's over there and buy the boots. Then we had to go get the jackets, right? Then we go into South Bronx, we get the felt. You gotta get your felt, then you buy your letters. Some of us got so artistic, we would cut their letters out. And then you put your felt on, and you put the letters on next to it, then you get an artist. Now for me, I had to get the best artist in the gang to draw my colors, because my colors were this with a knife going through the middle and blood dripping off.
Uh-huh.
And mine was made by an artist. My jacket was about 50 pounds, okay? It was about 50 pounds, okay? And this artist made my jacket, so we were very distinctive how you made your jacket. You very distinctive about kind of boots you wear. You got to have the right biker boots. You can't come with you come up with a combat boots, your ass is out. You take the boots off you, throw you out, take your jacket, and that's the type of shit you do. But it was very important how we looked. We all, I used to wear a floppy hat. If you ever see me and when I did Gil Noble, I had my floppy hat, and I used to wear this knit hat that flowed like this with 2 big balls coming off the side. That's how everybody knew goo. I always wear that hat. And that was part of the style,
Absolutely.
You going to sleep, Abby? Oh, man. Great time.
So yeah, around what time did you, start taking your colors off and, weren't wearing those? So while you were at Pathmark, is that kind of when it started happening?
I still kind of wear them at Pathmark too. Yes. Yeah. Not only that, the cops began to really target us. I think Lindsay left. Who came after Lindsay? Beam?
I think Beam, yeah.
Yeah, Lindsay left because Lindsay was soft on us. People didn't like the way Lindsay treated us. Lindsay, he put the commission guy in there and gave us clubhouses and all this money, right? I don't think they liked that about Lindsay because he was a Republican.
Yeah.
But he was a Democrat. He was a Republican in Democrat clothing.
That's right, yeah.
And he did a lot of social stuff, and but they ran him out. I forgot why. Anyway, Beam came in and he targeted us. And the newspapers really targeted. I mean, the other day I was about to go in Daily News. I'm thinking about going back down to the Schaumburg, do some work. And I wanted to go see if I could find the news, because I knew we were going to do this, and try to see if I could bring back, because we were always in the news.
Yes.
And particularly the Black Spades. It was like, and we knew, we used to read the, I never forget, we would be reading the papers like, we never did that. And they'll have my name go, I was never over there. You know, who the hell are they talking about? We never did this. That's what happened with the Black Benji thing when they killed, we don't, during that time, we were still in control of my guys.
Yeah.
When he died, I could tell you who was at Washington, who was there, There is no way my guys would have done, because during that time, we were having so many racial, I would have, why are you gonna fuck with him? We don't want that problem. And we were trying to stay away from problems. Now Lindsay's gone, all that's gone. Now the cops are targeting us, right in the community. You know, they come in, boom, lock you up, you see this going out like this. Now they wouldn't lock us up. You know, we go to the 43rd precinct. Some of the guys they smacked around, you wasn't scaring me. So, you know, they know not even fuck. But after about 30 minutes doing all the paperwork and all that shit, you know, the rap, all that, then they let us out. I think mainly it was just trying to keep us in while maybe something was going on. But we began to get targeted. So it was very difficult to really even move about with colors anymore.
Uh-huh.
Colors started fading out. People started even like, this is stupid. Why are we wearing colors? Some gangs, I think the Javelins might have been one. Stop wearing, we ain't wearing no colors. They were like, yo. And so we thought that was smart. We started, you know, why we ain't wearing no colors? But, you know, it was a transition. It's not something that happened overnight.
Sure.
But basically, colors had to go. We were being targeted, and I remind you that my other guys were still doing crazy shit. So, you know, they by the way, they knew who I was. Cops and whoever else, they knew who we were. We get phone calls at night. I used to get phone calls, my mother threatening my mother from different people. So it was, you know, they knew who we were.
Yeah.
They knew who we were.